On this episode of AviatorCast, how going after your dream to become a commercial pilot will forever change your life.
Welcome, aviators, to another episode of AviatorCast. Load up your flight bag with useful flight training topics, interviews, and aviation passion. Let's kick the tires and light the fires. Coming to you from Angle of Attack headquarters in Homer, Alaska, here's your host and flight instructor, Chris Palmer.
Welcome, aviators, to another episode of AviatorCast. My name is Chris Palmer, and we're going to be getting into a really cool subject today that I'm passionate about because I went through it myself, and I feel like it's going to be very useful for you. At least those of you that are looking to fly for a living, and those of you who want aviation as part of your life through the rest of your life, all right? Those of you that strive to fly every day. So, have you ever always wanted to learn to fly, always wanted it as a career, but you never quite found the time, you never quite found the money, or maybe family life got in the way? That's a really common one, the family life. And maybe you still feel like you have the opportunity to do it, but you don't necessarily know where to start. Now, with the mix of all these things, it's a little bit scary maybe for you to feel this way that, you know, is it really going to work out? Is it too late? Is it too much? Lots of different question marks if this is going to be something that's worth it. Now, aviation isn't one of those things that's cheap to go in and screw up. It's not like you can go in, on a semester of college like you can in aviation. It's just so expensive. I guess it depends on the college you're going to, but you don't want to exactly become a commercial pilot only to then waste that education. So is it going to be worth it? Is it going to be fun? Is it going to be a career that you enjoy? That's going to be something that we talk about throughout this podcast, with the idea of what is it like? Where do you end up? Is it worth it? That sort of thing. All right. So I think a lot of you have this story that's kind of in the making. All right. You're ready to be an aviation movie of someone that, trudged through the mud and went through so much to get to where you're going. And really, anyone that has made it in aviation has their own amazing story of the hard work it took to get to where they are. So I want to share a little bit about my journey, but keep in mind that you are ready to write your own story about aviation. And I hope that you choose to do that if you're on the fence about taking this leap of faith and doing this. So through this, you're going to see some of the challenges that I faced, what my life is like now, and maybe that's something that you look forward to, and maybe have a different idea, of course, on how that's going to be shaped for you, because my life is not going to be your life. You want things differently. That's just the way it is. But how getting to that point of becoming a commercial pilot, doing this for a living, commercial pilot means just the ability to take money for flying. So we're not talking airline pilots here, but how getting to that point will forever change the trajectory of your life. So that's what I want to bring you through from my story, and hopefully relating it to your story. Okay. So let's go there. So really quick, I want to go through my journey as a pilot. It is pretty fun to reflect back on this, but I think it's really illustrative of a lot of the things that everyday people go through. So it wasn't exactly easy for me. I didn't just do it all at once when I was a teenager. It wasn't paid for me. Some of it was in the very beginning, but then it became very difficult later. So I feel like this is very relatable for a lot of you that have those challenges of time, money, and family, because I feel like I went through every single one of them, okay? So I did catch the bug for aviation very early on. I started in high school with the thought that I would become a professional pilot. I had the dream of becoming an airline pilot, and I did end up going to college to become a pilot. Now, I only spent 2 semesters in college. Started when I was 18. I got my private pilot license at 18. I went to what's called a Part 141 college, which is the training is very regimented and structured, and spent an okay amount of money. It was actually fairly affordable because it was a state college, and really enjoyed the process. I actually really liked my training there. However, after that, I went through several years of no further training other than just the remedial stuff from one airplane to the next. Ended up flying quite a bit in an airplane that my dad had purchased. And at about 500 hours, I ended up getting my instrument rating at the age of 23. So about 5 years later, I got my instrument rating at the age of 23. Whole lot of time in between, whole lot of cross-country time, a lot of great experiences that taught me a lot about aviation. And I was fortunate enough in that time frame to get a lot of flying for free because my dad was paying for it. So that's the place where I come from. A bit of privilege is kind of how I started out. My private pilot wasn't that way. I paid for a lot of my own private pilot license, but then some of my hour building toward my instrument rating was all paid for, and I'm really, really grateful for that. So I know what it feels like to to get that gift of having someone help you. All right. However, just several years after that, I moved to Alaska, and I was 25 at the time when I moved here. And then a lot of things got in the way. I ended up getting out of aviation for about 5 years. Money. I went through a divorce. I went through the process of healing from that divorce, and that was a whole different story for another time over drinks if we ever meet up, but not really something I focus on. I was just kind of rewriting my life here in Alaska, and I think that's something that many people go through at some point, is they maybe disconnect from who they were as a child and then eventually become an adult. And I feel like when I came to Alaska, I was emancipated. I didn't have any family here. I grew my life kind of on my own here. Ended up, of course, meeting so many great people and great friends that helped me along the way. So I started connecting with that new community. I ended up getting married to my wonderful wife, Chelsea. She is my world. We started a family together. We grew our relationship together, and that was my focus for quite a long time. And I continued to grow my business. So Angle of Attack is actually 13 years old. I've been in the business of training people for that time frame. Started out in simulator training, did some business to business with a famous or a well-known aircraft manufacturer that I don't want to name. Didn't have a good time doing that. It was soul crushing, that corporate life. And so even though I was kind of moving back into aviation in a more serious way at the time and doing these high dollar projects, it taught me so much about what I didn't want to do in aviation. And I was looking forward to the fact that I had a family and I really needed a business that needed to grow and have some prospects there. So I thought that the business to business thing, the high dollar thing would work, but it wasn't for me. Never going to do it again. And decided that I needed to do something else. And so I'm very grateful for that bad experience because it taught me what I really kind of knew all along, but I was avoiding. And that was that I love to teach, and I needed to become legitimate in my ability to teach, which meant that I needed to get my commercial rating and I needed to get my flight instructor rating. Sure, I had years and years of experience doing my business and training people and doing these training products, but I wasn't actually a flight instructor, even though I had a lot of flight time and I really wanted to do that. So, interestingly enough, I decided that on the tail end of that project that I had such a horrible time in, that I was going to do this, that this was the way ahead. This was what I was passionate about. This was going to be my calling in aviation. That's where I'm at today, and I absolutely believe it. And I can't see an end to that calling of wanting to teach people and make a difference that way. I talked about that in the last podcast, the one about where I've been and what's ahead. So long story short, continuing and finishing off kind of where I'm at now is I decided to get back into my training to get that commercial and see if I'd done it the worst possible time. I started my commercial training right after my first baby was born, and then left home to go focus on that when he was 4 months old. So I literally left Alaska, went down to California, started that commercial training, and it was gut-wrenching to have to do that. Now, I just knew that I had to do what I had to do, right? Like, if I didn't do it right that second, I knew the writing on the wall because I had been doing this podcast already. I'd been mentoring people in aviation already. And I knew that I would not be able to progress forward if more things in my family life and my career started to fall in place that would be roadblocks and prevent me from moving forward. So even though I'm really blessed to have a family, I knew that like right away, it was only going to get busier, it was only going to get crazier. I also knew that as I switched the focus of my business, it was only going to get harder and money was going to get tight eventually. So I really wanted to start allocating funds to my own professional development. And I knew that there was no better time than now. And I think in my story, if there's anything you pull from it, is that is the key figure, is that there's no better time than right now. It's never going to be easier than it is right now. You know, with a little bit of wiggle room to be smart about when you start and how you start in aviation, but you just got to do it. And I realized that, kind of had this aha moment that if I didn't do it now, is probably never going to happen. I knew I was getting older. I was a rusty pilot, and I just had to go in and do it. Now, because it had been at that time 5 or 6 years since I'd done a check ride of any kind, and really any serious push in aviation training, I struggled so hard in my commercial training. It was tough. I was very rusty. The knowledge that I thought I knew was very much gone, and I had to repeat a lot of that stuff that had just left my brain from being this spry, you know, early 20s guy to someone that was slowing down a little bit into my 30s. And I know that sounds silly, but just recognizing that those cognitive things do change. I struggled really bad, and I actually documented this pretty well with a YouTube series I did. I think I ended up doing 3 or 4 videos on my commercial training, and so you guys can see visually what happened there. It was a complete disaster, but it taught me so much that I needed to push through, and I really wanted this dream, and that no matter what, I was going to make it happen. You know, money was becoming an issue, time was becoming an issue, weather was an issue the entire time. Literally, the DPE, a DPE is someone who does the check rides, who kind of passes you off from the FAA. Literally, the DPE got hospitalized, and I had to reschedule my check ride. Like, everything wrong that could have gone wrong happened to me. And unlike before, where I had someone helping me out, say with my instrument training, this was all on my own. Like, this was my own money, my own business, my own family, and that was it. Now, I say that tongue in cheek because there were so many people that were good to me and helped me and gave me free flight time and friends of mine. So I can't say that I did it completely alone, but you know, I think those things are more common than not if you build a community around you and you do your part to make that community better. There's some reciprocity there. So I had earned that reciprocity in a way from some of those people, and still feel like I'm paying that back today. But long story short, it was a very brutal process to get through my commercial license. And then I immediately wanted to go into my flight instructor training. Now, I did my commercial training in such a way and worked with a CFI, his name's Michael, that knew that that was my eventual goal. And so really a lot of how he was churning me through the process during my commercial was already getting me ready to do the CFI. And so when I went into my CFI several months later, it was a fantastic process. I had a great time doing it. I had the help of many great people through that process, different CFIs than Michael, namely Trace Clinton, Dave Herwig, and the big one, John Dorsey, who helped me so much. And it was a smooth process. And the CFI check ride for me, because I'd already been an educator, because I'd prepared so well, I'd buckled down so much at the end here, and really just changed my mind about where I was going. The CFI check ride was one of my easiest check rides, if not the easiest check ride. So it was just so natural and felt so good. And I remember driving away from the airport in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and I went down to Wisconsin for my training, and it was during May. And I remember driving away from Fond du Lac Airport, headed north, and off to the side, I saw this 170, a Cessna 170, taking off, you know, just kind of at a normal, smooth climb. The sun was setting, and I just had this overwhelming personal moment where I just felt like everything was right in the world. This is exactly where I needed to be. I worked so hard to achieve this, and I knew I was on the right path. It's one of those times when the universe just kind of comes together, and I absolutely knew this is what I was going to be doing, if I hadn't already had the proof before. But it was just such a special moment for me, and just really helped solidify what I was doing. So as I look back on this entire process, and as I look at my life as it currently is, I am incredibly blessed to get to do what I do. I get to fly a lot. I get to do some amazing experiences here in Alaska with an airplane. It's just totally opened up and changed my life. You know, I get to help people and help them along the journey, help them become pilots, get to be part of that, get to share experiences with them. And so it's been amazing. Like I can go and theoretically take the flight school airplane whenever I want, anytime. I could go out there right now and fire it up and go somewhere if I wanted to. And that's a really cool feeling. When I do fly, typically I get paid for it now. So I became a commercial pilot. I'm a CFI. I get paid for the flying I do. Aviation is a part of my everyday life. So, you know, with this podcast, with everything that I do, the online ground school, my flight school here, aviation is my life. That's what I do. Now, of course, above that is God and my family. And of course, that's most important. But aviation is my vocation. It's what I do every single day. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what keeps me going. It's what gets me excited to come to work every day. And I'm living my dream. Like this is what I wanted. And I'm really still pretty young, to be honest. And I almost have to pinch myself because sometimes I get bogged down in, you know, the financials of things, or how well I'm putting out content like this podcast, or how fast the community is growing, or how much or how good sales are doing. Sometimes I get caught up in that, but when I really take a step back and look at it, I have an amazing opportunity here and an amazing life. Like I really don't need to change anything from what I'm doing now. I could do this forever. I'm really loving it. And I have a trend upward that I'm just so grateful for. And it looks like that's a great possibility, that this is kind of the status quo of what I'll do the rest of my life. And I really, really love that. So I went through this journey. I became a commercial pilot, and then it completely transformed what I did in my life. So before, it was like, you know, all about business and all about growing the bottom line, and all about the big dollars and having a big team and having more employees. And I wasn't really passionate about it. Like I still love flying, and I was getting enough of a fix talking about flying every day to kind of get enough to keep me going, but it wasn't enough. You know, when I really went for my commercial and then my CFI, it's literally this piece of paper that you've earned a lot of hard work for, but it's this piece of paper you earn, and then it completely changes the paradigm of your training or your life, or your aviation life. So from then on out, everything was different. I flew a lot more. I had many more opportunities. People paid me to do it. It just completely changed my professional life, my aviation life. And really, that's what I want to get across today in this podcast, is that for those of you that are trying to get to this place, you have this dream, you want to become a pilot, you're not sure what it's going to be like, if it's going to be worth it. I can tell you right now, if you're passionate about aviation and you want this to be part of your life, there are so many opportunities in aviation right now that if you work hard and get to this point where you're a commercial pilot, it changes absolutely everything. Really, it's like this fork in the road, okay? You've been down this regular path. You can choose to go one way, which is what you've still been doing. Keep going down that long road of wishing you were going to become a pilot someday, wishing that was your career. Keep going that direction. You know, life is good there. It is. I realize that not all of you are going to do this, that not all of you will become pilots. And at least not commercial pilots. Life is pretty good there. You can have amazing careers that are maybe more fulfilling than this. It depends on who you are, okay? So that's not a bad direction to go. But if you really feel that pull the other direction, down the path of becoming a professional pilot, becoming a commercial pilot, going that direction, making it your everyday life, your vocation, what you do, then I don't think you're going to regret it. It's an amazing journey. You get to fly all the time. You get to have these amazing experiences. And I'm just kind of dumbfounded how much of a shift that was for me from where I was to where my life is now. And as I was going through the motions, kind of taking my own advice and pushing through that process, I'm so big on encouraging you guys to do that. I ended up at this place where I couldn't have placed it any better. I couldn't have written it up any better on where I was going to be. So all that happened kind of without me knowing it, but also working toward it, if that makes sense. But it was a complete paradigm shift, a complete life shift because I went that direction to become a commercial pilot. So the real switch in my mind to get me to go there is I felt like, and these could be your own words, okay? So maybe put yourself in this place if you feel like this is you talking, like this is you saying these exact things. So I was sick of wasting my life on a tomorrow. You know, I'll get my training done, or I'll start ground school in 2 months, or I'll save up the money and I'll start next year, or I'll schedule my check ride for this time. Like I just kept feeling like I was putting things off for a better time, whether that was family, time, money. Those are kind of the big three things. And I felt like I kept putting it off. I knew that also I wasn't a legit educator. Like I couldn't really tell people and train people well in aviation, which has always been a deep passion of mine, until I had actually taken real people through the process. So I knew I had to become legit. Again, I had those terrible work experiences that showed me that I needed to do something else. I just had enough. I knew I had to make the change, and I started taking little tiny steps, just little steps all the time. And I didn't stop taking those little tiny steps, you know, those phone calls, those Google searches, those dollars that I was saving, those conversations with my wife, whatever it was. I kept taking those little tiny steps to get to where I was going to go. And I didn't stop until I got where I needed to go, which was being a commercial pilot, having that amazing moment right after my check ride, after my CFI check ride, and just kind of knowing that. And now I'm living that life, and I have that validation all the time that I am where I want to be, and it's so helpful. So what are you going to do about it? If this podcast has spoken to you at all, if you feel like you want to go for this dream and you just kind of need a kick in the pants, I don't know what it's going to take for you to get going. But, I hear a lot of excuses about money and time and family. And I just feel like, man, if you're going to do it, like crap or get off the pot. You've got to do something. You've got to change something. You got to change your mindset. You got to get moving again. So, I don't know. Are you going to keep promising yourself that you're going to do it someday? Are you going to keep saying that you're going to save the money? Are you just waiting for like your career to change or things to settle down in your career, or maybe your family situation to change? Because I can tell you right now, when something else gets fixed, like your money or your time, then something else falls off. Like, again, you have to decide that you're going to do it and start to model your life into that path that takes you down the direction of getting where you want to go. Otherwise, it will not happen. It will not happen unless you make a deliberate and absolute decision to get this done. You're going to get it done now, and you're going to get it done at all costs. Okay. So I would say the one cost for me that I was never willing to pay was a family. So I wasn't willing to pay the cost of a family, but any other cost to get to where I was going was worth it. And I can tell you unequivocally that is correct and it's true. So Again, it will not happen unless you make a deliberate and absolute decision to get this done, get it done now, and get it done at all costs. This will completely change the path of your life. And please reach out to me. Let me know if this helped you. Let me know what your journey is like. Let me know if there's anything I can do to encourage you in your particular situation. You can reach out to me. One of the best ways is just through messages, like on Instagram, okay? Write me there. My phone number is also on my website. Text me. Don't call me. Text me. I'm happy to have a conversation with you, okay, and help you along the way. So let me know how it goes. You have to put in the work. You have to make this decision and make it happen. And I wish you all the best luck, all the best blessings, and hopefully it's smooth sailing in the skies for you ahead once you make this decision. So that is it for this episode of AviatorCast. Until next time, throttle on.
We sincerely thank you for joining us on AviatorCast. Please subscribe through your favorite podcast service and leave a review. Check out more flight training resources at angleofattack.com. There you can find this podcast, many free aviation training videos, as well as online ground school for private instrument, commercial, and CFI. Got a check ride coming up? Check Ride Ace from Angle of Attack is your ultimate companion, guiding you through the process so you can conquer your big day. Thanks once again for joining us on AviatorCast. Turn left, contact Ground Point Niner.